It's the final hours of Vote 2022, a midterm election of marquee matchups. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis seeking a second term in Tallahassee against a former governor, Charlie Crist. In Georgia, it's a rematch of 2018 between now Governor Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams. Voters heading to the polls with issues like the economy, crime, and election integrity on their minds. They'll also help decide the future of the control of Congress with high-profile Senate races in Florida and Georgia. Tomorrow, the votes will be counted. Tonight, we break down what's at stake. From Channel 4, the local station, this is Vote 2022. Your voice matters.
Counting down, we are now a little less than 11 hours away from the polls opening in most of Florida and all of Georgia for 12 hours of voting on Election Day 2022. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thousands of you have already cast your votes, and tomorrow, thousands more will head to the polls. Then, at the end of the day, we will find out who will lead our state and our neighboring state of Georgia, and who will be Jacksonville's next sheriff.
It is the conclusion to a campaign season that's filled the airwaves and your mailboxes with political ads from candidates trying to make their case to you, the voter. While the Florida and Georgia governor's races are grabbing a lot of attention, there are other state and local races and issues on the ballot. We have a team of anchors and reporters covering the election and closing days of the campaigns. Tonight, we start with Scott Johnson joining us live from Tampa. Scott.
Mary, I'm outside the convention center here in Tampa, where Governor Ron DeSantis will be meeting with supporters tomorrow as the polls close and the votes are counted. We'll be here throughout it all.
I'm Marilyn Parker in Tampa, where candidate for governor Charlie Crist will give his last news conference, urging people to get out and vote. He says on this ballot is freedom, and that includes freedom for women and their rights, LGBTQ plus communities, and the right to vote. He says all of those things are what Governor Ron DeSantis has been trying to take away, but tomorrow the voters will decide.
I'm Janice Harris in Miami, where U.S. Senator Marco Rubio will return tomorrow for his watch party. Republican Senator Marco Rubio is seeking re-election for the seat. His contender is Democrat U.S. Congresswoman Val Demings, who is running for that seat. Now, both have been campaigning for months, talking about various issues and traveling throughout the state of Florida, especially Northeast Florida, to get votes. Inflation, abortion, and climate change are all some of the topics they have been debating about, and they also say the other person lacks credibility on their claims, their views, and all of those issues. In one day, voters will decide who will take that U.S. Senate seat. I'm Janice Harris in Miami.
I'm Joe McLean here in Orlando, Florida, where Representative Val Demings will be wrapping up her campaign to unseat Marco Rubio, the incumbent senator from Florida. Her and her supporters are hoping to flip this seat in order to keep or extend the Democrats' razor-thin majority in the U.S. Senate. Demings has really worked hard to buck a popular Republican attack on Democrats that they're weak on crime. She's been leaning heavily on her career as Orlando's first female police chief.
Piggott at the Duval County Supervisor of Elections office. What are we expecting for a voter turnout? And could there be problems at the polls tomorrow? We'll talk to Mike Hogan to see what he has to say.
Michelucci in Atlanta tonight. There are a lot of eyes on the Peach State and the Georgia State Capitol. Some big races here in this battleground state, including the race for governor. Republican incumbent Brian Kemp is hoping to keep his seat as he faces a stiff challenge from Democratic challenger Stacey Abrams. The two went head-to-head back in 2018, Kemp winning by a very narrow margin. We're also watching the U.S. Senate race between Reverend Raphael Warnock. He's the incumbent Democrat, but is facing quite the challenge from the Republican football star Herschel Walker. There are many other races that we are watching, and pollsters expect this to be a very close battleground state. Of course, we'll keep you posted.
Thank you, Vic. And Kent's here now with our roundtable of political experts who will give us their insights over the next 2 nights.
Yeah, Rick Mullaney is here from our News4JAX political analyst and also the Public Policy Institute founder and director at Jacksonville University. What are you looking for in this very important midterm election tomorrow?
Well, Kent, 2 things. One for Florida, one national. For Florida, the conventional wisdom is that Ron DeSantis is going to win tomorrow. But look at the margin. If it's 5 to 10%, which would be historic. It would defy convention in Florida over the last 2 decades. It could be very significant. Does he provide coattails down ballot, particularly for Senator Marco Rubio, who's in a little bit of a tougher race, TK Waters, and watch those 28 congressional districts in Florida. That could affect the balance of power. And nationally, eyes will be on the Senate. Lots of races, but keep an eye on Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Nevada.
And Chris Hand is here with us tonight, government law attorney. Chris, I'm interested in what you're focused on and what we see happening on Tuesday as well.
Ken, 2 words: voter turnout. Through early voting and through the vote-by-mail ballots that have already arrived, statewide, Republicans have cast about 2.1 million ballots. Democrats about 1.8 million, NPAs 900,000. Here in Duval County, it's about 85,000 Republicans, 82,000 Democrats, and about 25,000 NPAs. Those early returns show potentially a very significant advantage for Republican candidates. The key question tomorrow will be, can Democrats catch up and potentially make these very competitive contests on Election Day itself?
Thank you, Chris. Political contributor John Newman is with us. John, when we come to midterm elections, often it's very painful for the party in power. What are you watching for tomorrow?
I'm going to dovetail on exactly what my friend Chris said, because we now have a poll that came in 73% to 73% tied in enthusiasm, which was at a deficit for the Democrats leading up into this. Also, when you look at the state of Ohio, there's a 3-point edge for Democratic enthusiasm. It was 10 points down in 2018. In Wisconsin now, they are literally 5 points up. And so when we take a look at the enthusiasm factor, we see what happens when polls don't vote. People do. Yeah. Maybe it will not be such a red wave as everybody thinks it will be.
Talking about enthusiasm means how engaged are voters? Are they going to turn out? Are they going to weigh in on these issues that are so important to them? One of the things that we're watching for tomorrow for sure.
We'll be watching. Thank you. And in the race for Florida governor, Governor Ron DeSantis faces off against Democratic challenger and former governor Charlie Crist. And we saw both candidates here in Northeast Florida this past Friday.
DeSantis was elected back in 2018. He is the youngest governor in the nation. Before that, he was a congressman representing Florida's 6th district, which includes southern St. Johns County, Putnam, and Flagler counties. Crist was governor of Florida from 2007 to 2011 as a Republican. In 2010, while running for the Senate, he became an independent, and in 2012, Crist joined the Democratic Party. In 2016, he became a member of Congress in the House. News4JAX reporters Marilyn Parker and Scott Johnson are on the road to cover these candidates tomorrow night. Let's go to Scott first. He is in Tampa, where DeSantis will await the voters' verdict tomorrow night. Scott?
Tom, I'm right outside the convention center here in Tampa, where he will meet with supporters tomorrow, hoping to get another 4 years. Polling shows that may happen, but we won't know until the polls close tomorrow and the votes are counted. So, what do we know? DeSantis has been all over the state campaigning. Here's some video of him down in the West Palm area speaking to supporters. He's had some large crowds here in the last few days as he tries to gin up support, really portraying himself as a leader of this state. Many people suspect a possible candidate for president down the road, but right now he's focused on beating Charlie Crist for this governor's race, talking about his record, encouraging people to vote, even with his bad weather system off the coast of Florida.
I just want you to know, you wait till Election Day. If you have a flat tire, no excuse. You got to make sure you get there. Something comes up, make sure you do it. You got all day. So I want 100% turnout from this crowd. Is that okay? And I mean, look, we're very happy because in Florida, you guys will go, storm the polls, and they will report the results like an hour later. Isn't that how it's supposed to be?
DeSantis has been big on portraying Florida as having a good election counting process. That, of course, has been a topic of discussion nationally. And one of the things about DeSantis that's interesting will be what happens after election day if he wins. There has been so much speculation for years on whether or not he will run for president in 2024. That is yet to be determined. For now, though, he says his only goal, he did in the debates, was to beat Charlie Crist. And that's what he's focused on, meeting with supporters here in Tampa tomorrow night. For now, we're live in Tampa. Scott Johnson, Channel 4, the local station.
Scott, thank you. Now let's go to Maryland, who is also in Tampa, where Crist is expected to be arriving soon.
In Maryland, he's making his closing pitch to voters before Election Day.
That's right. And, we're expecting to see him a little around 9 o'clock tonight. That's what we were just told by some of the communications directors here. This is going to be the last stop before the big day. And we have a few people inside this headquarters already. Now, we know that he was traveling around the state today trying to push out that message as much as possible to get out and vote. Crist has focused issues on women's rights to choose and voting rights. In one of his recent campaign stops, he also brought up the issue of health care.
Well, number one, by expanding Medicaid. We haven't done that in Florida, and we need to do that. That would mean 800,000 to 1 million people in Florida would get health care the next day. I'll do it. DeSantis won't. You want health care? Elect Charlie Crist.
And right now we know that he is at a rally with Val Demings in South Florida. So once he arrives here, as we're told, around 9 o'clock, we'll let you know a recap of what he says. That'll be coming up tonight on News4JAX at 10. We're live in Tampa tonight. Marilyn Parker, Channel 4, the local station.
Marilyn, thanks. Georgia is in the national spotlight this election with pivotal races for governor and senator. And there's so much interest this year that the state set early voting records for a midterm election with more than 2.5 million ballots already cast.
All this comes as the state has faced scrutiny and controversy following the 2020 presidential election. News4JAX reporter Vic Micolucci is joining us live from the battleground state's capital, Atlanta. Vic, if the pollsters are correct, the Senate contest between Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock is too close to call.
And Tom, that's just one of the many reasons why there are so many eyes on the Peach State, specifically the Georgia State Capitol here in Atlanta. There are so many races that are expected to come out with a razor-thin margin. Meanwhile, those candidates are working very hard for those last-minute votes, already seeing record numbers of early voting, and now they are crisscrossing the state, trying to win over some voters. Crisscrossing the Peach State, candidates are making their final push for votes in the midterm election. Incumbent Reverend Raphael Warnock, a Democrat, facing off against Heisman Trophy winner Herschel Walker, a Republican, for U.S. Senate. This is a race many people predict could go to a runoff. The two sparring over inflation, immigration, and women's rights. Meanwhile, Republican Governor Brian Kemp is hoping to keep his seat as he once again faces off against Democrat Stacey Abrams. 4 years ago, he beat her by about 55,000 votes.
It is so terrible in Georgia when it comes to the weakened gun laws in the state that we were the subject of an episode of FBI Most Wanted, because Georgia is so easy to get a gun and transfer a weapon.
And Ms. Abrams is trying to scare you at home about the constitutional carry legislation that would simply let you abide by your Second Amendment rights. And she doesn't want to talk about her co-sponsoring legislation that actually would confiscate your firearm.
Groups in Georgia have been working hard to get people registered to vote and then get them to cast their ballots. This as the state has new voting integrity laws. These GOP-passed regulations mean stricter ID requirements for absentee ballots. Voters will have less time to request an absentee ballot and fewer drop boxes for those ballots.
Our lives depend on electing the right officials who will do the right thing.
Georgia went blue in the 2020 election, the traditionally Republican-leaning state voting for 2 Democratic senators and President Joe Biden over Donald Trump with a razor-thin margin. Former President Trump continues to claim voter fraud in the state, despite 3 meticulous recounts.
We're looking forward to people accept the results, and half those people will be disappointed, and the other half will be very ecstatic. But if we can accept the results and move forward, that's good for everyone. I think it's good for our society.
This time around, one thing's for sure. These races will have a lot of attention from all across the country.
Close elections, tight elections, Georgia has become a legitimate swing state where you never know which party is going to come out on top.
And Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, who you heard from there, says that everybody needs to relax and understand that this is going to be a secure, a safe, and a fair election. Now, here in the state of Georgia, candidates must get 50% of the vote to be able to assume that office. So if they do not get that, we will see runoffs here once again, and those will take place on December the 6th. We're live tonight in Atlanta. I'm Vic Michelucci, Channel 4, the local station.
Thank you, Vic. And the pollsters predict Governor Kemp will have a fairly easy victory tomorrow night over Stacey Abrams. Joy Purdy now is here with a county-by-county look at the Georgia governor's race from 2018, the first time those two ran against each other, Joy, and what we'll be watching for tomorrow.
Thanks, Mary. Take a look. Vic talked about it a little bit, just how close that race was 4 years ago. Stacey Abrams lost 49% to Kemp's 50%. This is how Georgia voted. Much of it is red. You see the heavily populated areas, Augusta, Macon, Columbus, Atlanta, Savannah voted for Stacey Abrams. There's a new cool feature with this smart board. Tomorrow, as the results come in, you'll be watching the 2022 governor's race. I'll be able to tap on this button here and down will drop these 2018 numbers. So you'll be able to compare what happened 4 years ago to what is happening tomorrow night, even as we go county by county. So speaking of, let's take a look at how our area voted 4 years ago when these two last sparred against each other. You see a whole lot of red here, but just how red were those votes? When I tap on this heat index button, you'll be able to see just how strongly those votes were for Brian Kemp. The sharper the color red, the stronger the vote was for Brian Kemp. So take a look. And you can see Pierce and Brantley County. Brantley 91% to Stacey Abrams 8%. Pierce was 89-11. We take a look at Glenn County, a little bit lighter red here. And we've got a closer margin, 64-36. Camden County, 65-34. Charlton County, 75-24, a little darker red. Ware County, very quickly, 72-28. We will be able to look at that and other areas like the Atlanta area. Take a look. This Atlanta area, we're talking about Fulton County, 72% were for Stacey Abrams. DeKalb County, 83%. But those outlying suburbs may have an effect on how this area votes. When I hit this heat map once again, take a look. Those outlying suburbs, not such a strong blue. Gwinnett County, 57-42%. That margin a lot closer. We'll be able to take a look at the Savannah area, also not strong blue. Savannah last time, 59% to Kemp's 40%. We will also take a look at an area that covers the center of Georgia. Take a look. This is the Black Belt area, which traditionally votes Democrat, but you can see that is changing. Look at this heat map and you'll be able to see just what a toss-up this area is going to be right across here. Those colors are not very strong except in a couple of areas. We'll watch all of that for you tomorrow night. Very exciting times. Kent, we'll send it back to you.
Yeah, and so with our roundtable of experts, let's talk about these governor's races in Florida and Georgia. John, as we start, let's look at Georgia. 4 years ago, as Joy just pointed out, so tight, so much enthusiasm, and we talked about before, enthusiasm for Stacey Abrams. Is that there this time? There's a notion that maybe that momentum isn't in her favor like it seemed to be 4 years ago.
Well, it appears that there's more momentum for Kemp's camp. He was able to fend off the war against him from Donald Trump. People came to his aid. He has run a campaign that's been relatively smart. He hasn't made any real major flubs in any of his appearances with her on stage. And so it looks like perhaps it is his to lose. But always remember also, Stacey Abrams has a tremendous get-out-the-vote infrastructure. And again, because only people vote and polls don't, we have to see what the turnout's going to be.
Yeah, only people vote, polls don't. Great point. Chris, I think that's a great point. That's something that Stacey Abrams, even after losing that election narrowly 4 years ago, said she was going to pour her efforts into a get-out-the-vote kind of focus on her life for these last few years.
Well, it was successful, just 2 years later when in that January 2021 runoff, Georgians elected both Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff to the U.S. Senate. That get-out-the-vote infrastructure was a huge part of those successes, which of course gave control of the U.S. Senate to Democrats for the last 2 years. But there's going to be a couple of interesting factors in this Georgia race. If Brian Kemp ends up winning, ironically, it may prove that when he won this election was 2 years ago in 2020, when he denied former President Trump's attempts to kind of relitigate the Georgia election or repeat those. As a result, a Trump-favored candidate ran against Brian Kemp in the primary, which he won overwhelmingly. That gave him a sense of political independence, which may appeal to both moderate voters and some NPA voters in Georgia. That may make the difference tomorrow in the Peach State.
Yeah, Rick, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on this Georgia run for governor as well. It's pretty intense.
A couple things to keep in mind, both Florida and Georgia. As we've gotten into this more partisan age, not too often do you have a split ticket. And that means you vote one way for governor and one way for senator. In Georgia, if Kemp is successful, as many believe he is, that could be a help to Herschel Walker. Another thing to keep in mind in Georgia, when you're seeing all that red from Joy, is this thing you're going to see across the country, which is the rural votes tend to go Republican, the urban areas, heavily populated, tend to go Democrat, and there's a battle in the suburbs. So expect to see a lot of red in those maps in Georgia and Florida and Pennsylvania, by the way, but don't be fooled because those heavily populated areas, those urban areas, are Democrat, and the battleground will be in the suburbs. Florida, very similarly, that top of the ballot with Governor DeSantis could provide some coattails down ballot.
Yeah, so let's swing back around the table before we're out of time. This notion that Rick suggested earlier, is Governor DeSantis in a place where he's just trying to stretch the lead, show the margin because he's after something beyond Tuesday night?
Oh, absolutely.
The elephant in the room here, right?
The margin is going to be everything.
No hesitancy here with that answer.
If he wins by significant.
I had to ask the question.
No, you did. I agree with John.
An historic moment.
That's great. We'll keep watching this. Obviously, we've seen Charlie Crist campaign before, successful many times. Not the last time he ran for this office in 2014.
True. Thank you, Kent.
As we said a little earlier, Georgia saw record turnout for early voting. However, Florida does not seem to be keeping up with previous years.
We're going to break down the numbers in our local counties next.
Aren't you glad to live in the free state of Florida? So we need everybody to come out and let their voice heard. Talk to your friends, your family, your neighbors, co-workers, employees, and let them know that we got to come out and support the governor. We are going to carry this torch of freedom onward because our mission is very simple. We are keeping the state of Florida free. Thank you all. God bless you.
The fair is in the air November 3rd through the 13th at the Jacksonville Fairgrounds with all the rides, all the food, all the fun, all the cute critters, and all the concerts with up-and-comers LPT, Priscilla Block, Connor Smith, Bold City Classics featuring Paris Winningham of The Voice, Dean Winter and the Heat, and so much more. November 3rd through the 13th at the Jacksonville Fairgrounds. The fair is in the air.
So with a Planet Fitness Black Card, I'll get a post-workout glow like that guy?
Everybody knows that you need to glow, the glow to grow.
And I get a free Amazon Halo to track my fitness and sleep.
Cause when you got the glow, there is no stopping what you want to do. Oh.
And I can bring a friend.
It's the way of life.
Okay, sign me up.
Get the PF Black Card for zero enrollment, $24.99 a month, and get a free Amazon Halo View. Ends November 15th. It's glow time.
What's local news to you? It brings us together with stories of hope, revelation, and positive stories too. It's knowing the history of our communities and the struggles we've overcome. Stories that grabbed our hearts, that kept us safe. It's getting answers to what I care about most. Committed to giving you a voice. Only News4JAX makes choices that put us first. They are who they've always been. News4JAX on Channel 4, the local station.
On the eve of Election Day, local election workers are busy setting up precincts and preparing to count the ballots that have already been cast.
Early voting wrapped up yesterday here in Duval County, while in most of the surrounding counties it ended Saturday. More mail-in votes arrived today, as they can arrive until 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. Statewide, 33% of registered voters voted early or by mail so far. Here in Duval County, turnout was nearly 30% following early voting. In St. Johns County, early voting turnout was almost 38%. Clay County turnout was 32%. And turnout in Nassau County at nearly 40%. News4JAX reporter Jim Pickett has been covering Duval County elections for as long as I can remember, frankly.
Yeah.
He's joining us now from the Supervisor of Elections office downtown, where they expect overall turnout will be added up tomorrow. Jim, are they anticipating any problems tomorrow?
They're not anticipating any problems, Tom. At least they hope there's not going to be any problems. I'm going to answer that question for you. I've been doing this for about 30 years, and it really seems what we're seeing now is really a complete difference in voting, early voting, very popular. Vote by mail, not as popular. But as I had mentioned, they're not really anticipating problems to be happening. What they do have inside, they do have that poll watchers. Those are official people from the parties that have been vetted. They're allowed inside. They're not allowed to talk to you, but they observe everything that's going on. Outside, about 150 feet away, we have the poll observers. And that's where there have been some incidents and some concern. And I talked to Supervisor of Elections Mike Hogan about that, and I also talked to poll workers about what they're expecting.
We were there today as poll workers picked up their supplies to get ready to open their precincts early tomorrow morning. Nancy McMillan is one of them.
How are you feeling about tomorrow?
I am very excited about tomorrow's election, and I just pray that everyone come out and support their candidates.
You know, a lot of people say they worry about poll workers because they feel that they've been threatened. Do you have any concern about that?
No, not whatsoever. Not whatsoever. No threats.
You feel safe and everything?
Yes.
You learned a lot from
I learned a lot.
Poll workers underwent training. During early voting, there were no major issues, but Supervisor of Elections Mike Hogan says some voters expressed concerns about those outside the polls.
We always take extra steps on security if we get rumors of things and so forth. But I think this is all trumped up. I don't mean to use the ex-president's name, but I don't think there's been any intimidation around. Some of these groups that are out there to prevent intimidation have actually called people. We've had calls from people saying, "Who are these people? Why are they here?" They're actually intimidating some voters.
Besides getting ready for the polls to open, Hogan and the canvassing board were also checking vote-by-mail ballots today. They're reviewing signatures that just don't match the ones on file. They also have been looking at ballots that they had to remake because they were damaged or where a voter marked two candidates for one race, an overvote. They try to determine voter intent. If they can't, that race just isn't counted, but the rest of the ballot is accepted. Right now, there are 2,431 questionable ballots where there are problems, and those votes may not be counted.
You know, and after the election tomorrow, a lot of people have been telling me they're just so tired of the negative ads. Well, here in Jacksonville, get prepared for more because we have a spring election coming up, and you're going to start seeing those ads appear very soon. You know, we have an election for mayor, city council, and yes, another sheriff's election. For now, we're live downtown. Jim Pickett, Channel 4, the local station.
That's right. Thank you, Jim. Well, the balance of power on Capitol Hill is on the line this election year.
A look at the key races, including Florida and Georgia, that will decide control of the Senate. Just ahead.
Whether you work in a factory, an office, or fixing cars, Ron DeSantis is making it harder to get by. He hiked sales taxes $1 billion and said skyrocketing insurance costs weren't his problem. Well, they're a problem for you. DeSantis won't fix it. I will.
Insurance companies love the term fender bender, but these so-called minor impacts can cause major life-changing injuries, brain injuries, ruptured discs, and ligament tears that can last forever. That's why you need to be evaluated by a doctor who specializes in these cases. We know the doctors who know how to diagnose, treat, and help us prove that your injuries from the accident are real. And we've been doing it for 40 years. Farah and Farah.
In Florida, Charlie Crist approved the largest tax increase in state history. In Washington, Crist voted for the largest tax increase in American history.
Would you do it again? If necessary, I would.
Governor DeSantis has delivered Floridians relief. He enacted Florida's largest ever tax relief package, cutting taxes on gas, groceries, and diapers, and secured Florida's largest ever budget surplus, ensuring your taxes won't go up. Governor DeSantis, delivering for Florida families and workers.
Look at that grin. Ron DeSantis signing away your right to choose. He's happy there's no exception for rape or incest. Happy because DeSantis thinks politicians like him should control women's bodies. As governor, I'll protect your choice, and that's the difference.
Republicans are hoping to take back control of Congress this midterm election. This is a live look at Capitol Hill. Florida and Georgia voters will have a deciding role in that, with each state choosing a senator. Welcome back to our election special, Vote 2022, Your Voice Matters.
Republican Marco Rubio is seeking his third term. He faces Democratic Congresswoman Val Demings. She was elected to the House from Orlando in 2016. She's giving up her seat next January, and back in August, she was the winner of the Democratic primary for the party's Senate nomination. The last time Rubio ran for re-election in 2016, he won easily with 52% of the vote. News4JAX reporter Joe McLean and Janice Harris are covering these two candidates for us. We start with Janice in Miami. Janice, Rubio was here in Jacksonville this afternoon to pitch to local voters here.
That's right, Tom. Rubio was in Jacksonville, and he hopes that Jacksonville is one of the many cities that will allow him to have a red wave and keep him in his U.S. Senate seat. U.S. Senator Marco Rubio was welcomed in Jacksonville by a packed house of people at Mambo's Cuban Cafe. The incumbent Republican has served 2 terms since first winning in 2010 and hopes to win a 3rd term tomorrow. While in Jacksonville today, Rubio said people deserve to live the American dream, and he's the candidate to keep that dream alive and wants every Republican in the state to vote.
We don't need any surprises. We need to win. We need to win big. And the reason why we need to win big is because we got to send a message. It's not just about sending good people. That's really important. But it has to be the kind of win that sends a message.
Rubio showing confidence he will win the votes needed to maintain his seat, posting on Twitter, "A red wave is coming to Jacksonville. #Florida.
We can win, and we can leave our children what they deserve in America."
Rubio hopes Jacksonville is just one of the many cities in Florida where a red wave will keep him in the U.S. Senate seat. And Marco Rubio just posting on his Instagram in the last 40 seconds saying tomorrow Orlando and all of Central Florida will show Biden and the Democrats in Congress what happens when those in power ignore the issues that matter to hardworking, law-abiding Americans. And Rubio will be back here in South Florida, in Miami, for his watch party during Election Day. Janice Harris reporting live in Miami, Channel 4, the local station.
Janice, thank you. Joe McLean is in Orlando, where Demings will await the returns tomorrow night.
And Joe, the Congresswoman focused today's effort in South Florida.
Right, yes, and actually she just wrapped up a rally, really her campaign's last rally before the midterms tomorrow. And the president actually stopped by last week to campaign both with Demings and former Governor Charlie Crist. But she's been all over the state in the past few days, including her hometown of Jacksonville on Friday. The Congresswoman has campaigned on issues like abortion rights, the environment, and protecting programs like Social Security and Medicare. And she's been uniquely immune to a common Republican attack that Democrats are, quote unquote, weak on crime. She's leaned heavily on her long career with the Orlando Police Department here, including serving as the department's first female chief. Now, she's also pushed back hard against the rallying cry, defund the police. She said she does not support that. And in the final campaign tour across the state, including today, her message was that freedom itself and democracy are on the ballot.
I just happen to believe that every man and every woman, every boy and every girl, regardless of who they are, the color of their skin, how much money they might have in the bank, their sexual orientation, sexual identity, or religion should have the opportunity to succeed. I just happen to believe that every person should be able to live the American dream. What's on the ballot? Everything.
So as you heard in Janice's piece and this one, both of these candidates are saying they are the ones to protect the American dream. Now, Deming's campaign is also sort of seen as a test of Democratic voting power in the state, which many analysts have said has been leaning more and more Republican. Reporting live in Orlando, Joe McLean, Channel 4, the local station.
Thank you, Joe. And as you heard Vic Michelucci report earlier, Georgia has one of the most watched Senate races in the nation.
Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock is trying to win a full 6-year term. He became Georgia's first black United States senator when he won a special election last year to serve out the remainder of Senator Johnny Isakson's term. He had a razor-thin victory over Republican Kelly Loeffler, who had been temporarily appointed to the seat. Warnock is facing football icon and Republican Herschel Walker, who is backed by former President Trump, a longtime friend. There is a chance this race could go to a December runoff because, as you can see in this picture, there is a third candidate, Libertarian Chase Oliver. Under Georgia law, a candidate must get more than 50% of the vote in a general election to avoid a runoff.
News4JAX anchor Stacey Spanos is following other key Senate races around the country for us, and she's joining us with a look at some of the high-profile races. Stacey.
Tom and Mary, they are very high-profile races indeed. Politicos across the country have been analyzing them all election season. Take a look at the diagram that's up there on the screen. This represents the balance of power in the Senate since January of 2021 and split it right down the middle. There are 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans, and there should be 2 yellow dots there indicating independent senators who typically vote with the Democrats. Well, right now, the Democrats have the majority because Vice President Kamala Harris is the tiebreaker on any 50-50 vote. As we head into Election Day tomorrow, the Democrats and independents will hold on to 36 seats. Those seats are not up for election this year. On the right-hand side, those red dots indicate the 29 seats that Republicans will hold on to. They are not up for election. The white circles in the middle, those are seats up for grabs, and there are 39 in all. That's where the balance of power shift could take place. So let's start with 2 races out west. They are seats currently held by Democrats. In Nevada, Senator Catherine Cortez Masto faces a challenge from Republican Adam Laxalt. In the final weeks, Cortez Masto has focused on the issue of abortion. Laxalt has focused on the economy. Both candidates have served as Nevada's Attorney General. In Arizona, Democratic Senator Mark Kelly is seeking re-election and what would be his first full 6-year term after finishing the term of the late Senator John McCain. This year, he faces Republican Blake Masters, who is in his first ever campaign for office and was endorsed by former President Donald Trump. Now let's spotlight 3 seats currently held by Republicans. First up, Pennsylvania. It is an open seat because Senator Pat Toomey is retiring. Democrat John Fetterman and Republican Dr. Mehmet Oz are locked in a close contest. Fetterman is the state's lieutenant governor. A question surrounding his campaign has been his recovery from a stroke earlier this year. Dr. Oz has been endorsed by President Trump. Keep in mind, Pennsylvania does not start processing mail-in ballots until Election Day, and as we saw in 2020, it might take several days to count all the votes. In Ohio, Republican Senator Rob Portman is retiring, and Democrat Tim Ryan and Republican J.D. Vance are running for the open seat. Ryan is a 10-term congressman. Vance is a venture capitalist and author of the best-selling book, Hillbilly Elegy. In North Carolina, Republican Richard Burr is not running for re-election, and Democrats hope Sherry Beasley could give the party its first U.S. Senate win in the state since 2008. If elected, she'd be the state's first black U.S. senator. She faces Republican Congressman Ted Budd, who's been endorsed by former President Trump, which was a game changer for him in the Republican primary. Again, there are 35 seats in play. Tomorrow, we will be tracking the key races and filling in those blank circles as those races are called to see if and how this balance of power shifts in the U.S. Senate and also in the House. Back to you, Tom and Mary.
Stacey, thanks.
All right, and so I always love to point out, Chris Hand, you worked for a U.S. Senator from Florida, Bob Graham. You were in the U.S. Senate with him. Tell me your view on this, because there are those, as many as the openings are that Stacey just talked about, 7 or 8 that really are the key races that are up for grabs there, right?
Well, I would say it's even maybe as small as 5, kind of based on what some of the final polls say. And the challenge for Democrats is, in politics, much like in sports, it's probably better to be on offense than on defense. Well, Democrats are on defense in a lot of these seats. If you take those 5 races, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, New Hampshire, Democrats hold 4 of those seats now. Republicans hold 1, the one in Pennsylvania. So again, Democrats need to hold all of their seats, and if they win the one in Pennsylvania, they would have a 1-seat gain in the U.S. Senate. If they lose even one of those seats and it happened to win Pennsylvania, then they'd have an even split. It would be a 50-50 Senate again. But if they lose 2 or more of those seats that they're defending, which looks very possible as we sit here today on election eve, then there will be a change in control of the United States Senate. So again, we really do see the difference between playing defense and playing offense, and right now Democrats are playing defense in those Senate seats.
Yeah, are those some of the same seats that you're watching, Rick?
Kent, they really are. Remember, there's 35 races overall, 21 are Republican, 14 are Democrat, but Chris really outlined it. The question for the Republicans is straightforward. It's a 50-50 tie. Where can we go to pick up a seat? Well, they've got 4. One is Georgia. They hope to win there. That's a dead heat. One is Nevada. That's a dead heat. They hope to win there. Another is Arizona. They're a little bit behind there. And New Hampshire, a little bit of a stretch, but a dead heat. For the Democrats, however, as Chris outlined, they've got a couple places they may pick up. One is Pennsylvania, for sure. That's a very competitive race. Then they look to Ohio and they look to North Carolina. What's interesting, in the 6 top toss-up states, Kent, nearly all of them have Trump-backed candidates. And there was a time this summer when they felt they weren't competitive, but in fact, these are now toss-up states, and it's going to be very, very close. There are some who say it's a red wave in the Senate. I don't think so. 60 days ago, I would have predicted, or many were predicting, the Democrats could maintain hold of the Senate. Right now, it's leaning Republican, but it's very competitive. As Chris outlined, Republicans looking at 3 to 4 states for pickups, Democrats looking for 1 or 2.
Yeah, John Newman, you told us years ago when the special election was happening that you know Raphael Warnock personally.
Yes.
What are the thoughts there? This is a key race, and it wasn't anticipated just a few months ago that it was going to be as close as it seems to be right now in Georgia.
You know, one of the things I think is really interesting, Kent, is that people I've talked with, they're really surprised that it is as close as it is. When they look at Ralph Warnock, PhD, brilliant pastor, social activist, social justice warrior, then you look at his opponent. He ran football really well up and down the field. You know, not much in terms of qualifications as most people think. And also some folks think that it's really a bad example of African-American manhood that's on display. In fact, Ralph is running a campaign ad right now where Republicans are saying any man that holds a gun to his wife's head is not a good man. And so I think they're very surprised in many ways that it is as close as it is, but it's more about controlling the Senate, and so people are holding their nose in voting for Herschel Walker.
Well, you've said again and again, John, though, the key is the turnout. The key is the turnout. If the Republicans really want that Senate seat back, their predictions, they'll put aside Herschel Walker's past and turn out to send him to the Senate.
But also what infrastructure that Stacey Abrams created for herself may benefit Warnock, maybe not herself.
Yeah. And we're just not going to know that probably until late tomorrow night.
Well, and I want to point out, we're talking all U.S. Senate. Is it a foregone conclusion that the House goes red? I mean, there's been a lot of talk that Republicans pick up enough seats to take back power in Congress.
Yes. I really do think there is the conventional wisdom, and there's a reason for it, believes that the House is going to go Republican. About a year ago, when it appeared that there was going to be a red wave, you actually saw a lot of Democrats in the House leave the House, and that's created, there's no incumbents there. Plus, of course, it's history. Not only is this a midterm and the Republicans, the party out of power, it's a first-term president. More or less, there is a general view that the Republicans are definitely going to take the House. The projection is 10 to 20 seats. If they go more than 20 seats, they'll be exceeding expectations. Below 10 seats, below expectations. But generally speaking, the wisdom is that the Republicans will take the House.
And Chris, I don't want to get away. I know you were about to say something as well.
Well, I was just going to say to your question, I mean, let's just look at the math. This is always a math problem. Republicans need to pick up 5 seats in the House at this point, essentially, to regain control. Right here in Florida, the redistricting that the legislature passed in 2022 would create 4 new Republican-leaning seats in the House of Representatives. So that gives you a sense of just how close that margin is and just how little Republicans have to do around the country to take control in that very narrowly divided House of Representatives.
And Tom and Mary, what we've been talking about is history. Yeah, I mean, 4 years ago, Republicans lost 40 seats in Congress while Donald Trump was going through his first midterm election. And you go back to 2010 for President Obama, lost 63 seats. It's part of what happens 2 years after a new president is elected in the executive branch.
It is the process. All right. Well, it's the local race we didn't expect to be on the ballot this fall.
A look at the heated runoff in the special election for Jacksonville Sheriff. That's next.
For nearly 40 years, our success in handling personal injury cases has allowed Harrell & Harrell to invest in this community. And we aren't looking to go anywhere else. To us, being local matters and you matter. Call us. Harrell & Harrell.
On behalf of WJXT and Jacksonville Hyundai dealers, congratulations, Andrew Wynn Sr. News4JAX insiders voted you to receive a 2022 Hyundai Tucson in the Hyundai Hometown Heroes giveaway.
Own every mile at the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Hurry in to get our best deals of the season. Get in and get away. Get 0% APR financing plus 0 payments for 90 days on select vehicles. Now, during the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event.
So you want to help a local business, but you don't know where to start? You can get that going by nominating and voting for your favorite local biz as part of our Jack's Best campaign presented by Visit Jacksonville. What is Jack's Best? It's Jacksonville's voter-centric guide showcasing the best the 904 has to offer. Help a local business shine by nominating and voting for them at news4jax.com/JacksBest. While you're at it, download the Jack's Best app to find all the best stuff in Jack's. Jack's Best presented by Visit Jacksonville, where you're the local expert.
Tracking last-minute birthday gifts? You're not alone. Tracking your kid's lost phone? You bet. Tracking your pizza? Yeah, that too. Tracking rain down to the minute so your family can still get outside? We do that every day. Chief Meteorologist John Gahn and the Weather Authority. Tracking when, where, and how weather will get in your way. Helping you get around it and keep your plans on track. The Weather Authority. Always watching, always tracking. Channel 4, the local station. Vote 2022. Your voice matters. Coverage starts at 7 on News4JAX Plus, then at 8 on Channel 4. In-depth breakdown at the issues and candidates important to you. Tuesday starts at 7 on News4JAX Plus, then at 8 on Channel 4.
For Florida voters, this is a relatively light year when it comes to proposed constitutional amendments at the tail end of your ballot.
There are 3 questions. All of them were proposed by the legislature as opposed to independent groups. Amendment 1 is an effort to help homeowners fight the effects of rising sea levels and climate change. If it's adopted, improvements made to a home to prevent or minimize flood damage would not be counted toward the home's assessed value for paying property taxes. It would save those homeowners money on their taxes, but would also reduce tax revenue collected by local governments.
Amendment 2 would get rid of the Constitutional Revision Commission. That group meets every 20 years and can propose changes for voters to consider making to the state constitution. The panel last met in 2017 and 2018, and if it is not abolished, it would meet again in 2037.
Like Amendment 1, Amendment 3 also deals with property taxes. It would give homeowners in certain public service professions an extra homestead exemption of $50,000. The proposal covers teachers, law enforcement, correctional officers, firefighters, EMTs and paramedics, and active duty military. Also like Amendment 1, it would save those homeowners on their property taxes, but local governments would lose out on that revenue. So an unexpected race this election cycle is for Jacksonville's next sheriff. It became necessary when Mike Williams resigned back in June.
TK Waters and Lakeisha Burton were the first and second place finishers in August's 5-way primary, but neither received more than 50% of the vote, leading them to the runoff. Both candidates included building trust as part of their platforms. Waters has promised to add more officers to the streets, improve technology to fight violent crime, and target violent criminals and gangs for prosecution. Burton says she plans to partner with community leaders to focus more on prevention and education, increase officer training on interacting with the public, and add street-level detectives to target gang violence and drug violence.
Tonight, the candidates have been speaking in a community forum in the Arlington area, and this is new video of the event. Waters and Burton are addressing concerns including unnecessary arrests in their final push before Election Day. Hear from them coming up tonight at 10.
All right, so why don't we hear from our roundtable now? So, Rick Mullaney, we got to enjoy hosting all 5 candidates before the primary in a debate at Jacksonville University with the Public Policy Institute. What do you see now that we've got Burton and Waters, and it's been intense at times in these last 2 months?
It has been intense, but first of all, this isn't the primary, this is November, and the November turnout is different in a governor's race. So a couple things to keep in mind. While the state of Florida is trending red, Duval County has been trending blue. You saw that in 2018 in statewide races for governor and senator. You saw it in 2020 in the presidential race. One thing that will be very interesting tomorrow night is, does Duval County go blue in the Senate and governor? But what does that mean in the sheriff's race? Because that potential increased turnout could potentially benefit Lakeisha Burton if there's a bigger turnout, if it's a more Democratic turnout. On the other hand, as I mentioned earlier, take a look at the top of the ballot, Ron DeSantis. Is there a red wave coming to Florida, and does that red wave help TK Waters? Now, in a sheriff's race, it's less partisan. Party labels don't matter as much, and both of them have support from Republicans and Democrats. But in the end, those labels do matter somewhat. So one of the things to keep an eye on is, what does Duval County do tomorrow night, and what potential impact does that have on the sheriff's race?
John Newman, what do you think about this? We talked off camera earlier that it seemed like it got negative kind of in a hurry in this race.
It really did, and what was unfortunate about it was taking incidents in her life when she was 19 years old, some youthful indiscretions, and then at the same time, knowing those discretions, Nat Glover hired her. Knowing those discretions, Mike Williams promoted her. Knowing those indiscretions, she was promoted again by Sheriff Rutherford. But all of a sudden now it's a big issue. So I think that's what really created the animus, because the truth is, when it comes to human foibles, the Bible's clear. All have sinned and come short. Right? We all have them. So it became very nasty at that point, and I think that that's unfortunate, because the issues are really more important than anything else.
Yeah, Chris Hand, do you think the issues are what are going to drive whether somebody votes for Waters or Burton in this case?
It's certainly more challenging in a November general election where there are a lot of partisan forces pushing one way or the other, like Rick said earlier. But they certainly should drive it. Look, crime is this chronic major challenge in Jacksonville that has existed year after year. Every year we see the statistics come out in terms of the number of homicides or other major crimes that have occurred. So the issue discussion has been limited in this campaign, but let's not forget there'll be another opportunity for that potentially. Depending on how close these candidates finish tomorrow night, it is possible we will see a rematch in the regular city elections in March and May. This is just for a 7-month term. That election will be for a 4-year term.
And from what I understand, the newly elected sheriff will take office this month at some point, and then by January we've got another campaign happening. So all of that will turn around pretty quickly. And as I understand it, we're going to turn around for a commercial break, and we'll be right back in our election preview special here for Vote 2022.
Looking for a new home to rent in Jacksonville? JWBRentalHomes.com is the place to start. With over 16 years of renting homes, plus a huge selection of inventory for rent in all price ranges, JWB Rental Homes has the perfect place for you. We make it easy and affordable to rent a home. Brand new construction options. Ask how to lock in your monthly rent. Even schedule your own same-day showing with a code sent to your phone. See what the best property management team in Jacksonville has to offer at JWBRentalHomes.com.
You might think a bad guy is sexy, but does he diversify your stock portfolio? Does he have a healthy relationship with his mother? Does he prioritize the cleanliness of his vehicle? Predictable? That's sexy. The 2022 Toyota Corolla. Get 1.9% APR for 36 months on a new 2022 Toyota Corolla. Toyota, let's go places.
Football in Florida. What a proud tradition.
The pros get the big bucks.
And the colleges the big crowds.
But when it comes to the game that touches our lives most, high school football gets our vote.
It's a game many of us have played ourselves.
It's where we come to watch our kids play and connects us to a proud tradition, to each other, and invites us to be part of something we'll remember for the rest of our lives.
That's why Farrah & Farrah is proud to support Football Friday on 4.
Let me know if you're ready to get dollar
greatness, man. Born for greatness, man.
A couple of reminders before you go to the polls tomorrow. On Election Day, you must vote in your assigned precinct. The polls will be open from 7 in the morning until 7 tomorrow evening. In order to vote, you must show a valid photo ID with a signature. If you don't show an ID with a photo and a signature, you will only be able to vote with a provisional ballot.
And make sure to check out our voter's guide before you vote. It includes all of the races in your area, along with information on each candidate running. Just go to news4jax.com/voters guide. And after you cast your ballot, we invite you to show us your patriotic pride. Take a picture with your I voted sticker and post it to news4jax.com/snapjax under the Election Day channel. Remember, though, you cannot take pictures inside a polling precinct.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, important.
None
Make
of us
sure you
will
don't
be
do
doing
that.
As a matter of fact. All right, some final thoughts here. John Newman, let's start with you. Stakes seem pretty high coming up tomorrow night.
Yes, they are, but I just want to encourage, and great discussion tonight, by the way. I want to encourage everyone watching us to do this. Take this personal franchise you have to exercise your vote with a sacred preeminence, because blood cries from the soil for all the folks who lost their lives to give us this opportunity. Yes. And I think we have to really seize this moment and exercise that franchise. Millionaires, billionaires, thousandaires, hundredaires,
deeply
all
in
of
debt,
us are on the same street when it comes to voting. It's the ultimate equalizer. Vote.
Chris Hand, I know exercising some of those rights that we have as American citizens is very important to you. What's your final thought tonight?
Well, crucially important, and John just said it beautifully. When you looked at those voter turnout numbers that were posted earlier, and you think of the stakes of this election, hopefully we can all sort of make sure tomorrow we use that most fundamental right of citizenship and get out and have a say in our government. There's going to be a lot we're all watching tomorrow. I'll be very curious to see, does this election, there's been a lot of issues discussed back and forth, does it ultimately come back to the one that seems to decide election after election, and that's the economy? And we'll check that tomorrow night and see how voters came down both here in Florida, in Georgia, and around the country.
All right, Rick, you get the final word on your final thoughts, I guess.
Well, Kent, I think tomorrow potentially is one of the most interesting and maybe historic midterms in a generation. A year ago, it looked clearly this was a red wave for lots of reasons: history, low presidential approval ratings, and the economy. During the summer, what you call the Dobbs summer, after the Supreme Court opinion and after overturning Roe versus Wade, gas prices coming down, legislative agenda with President Biden, it appeared the Democrats had momentum. This fall, it's turned back because of inflation and the economy. Republicans appear to have the momentum. So now, potentially a more traditional midterm for the party out of power. One thing's for sure, it's going to be more competitive in the Senate, very competitive. But the one thing for sure, as John was mentioning, it's very consequential. This can shape politics and our policy for a long time to come. Very significant tomorrow. I hope everyone gets out and votes.
Yeah, and it's going to be very, very interesting to watch. Thank you very much. We'll be back tomorrow night with your thoughts and analysis as we go through the evening.
And I echo that. If you haven't been able to get out and vote, you haven't done the early vote, get out there and vote, right? Thank you so much for joining us.
And then our live coverage of results and analysis will begin tomorrow night at 7 o'clock on News4JAX.com and News4JAX Plus. And we will then be here on Channel 4 starting at 8 o'clock with 2 hours of special coverage leading up to the 10 o'clock news. A reminder once again, the polls open tomorrow at 7 in the morning. Good night, everybody.